All right, welcome back, guys. We've got another OnShape tutorial continuing on from where we left off last time, where we made a very basic house brick type project. We learned how to create a sketch using the basic shapes like rectangles and circles, and we also learned how to create material and remove material from material that's already existing. So in today's tutorial, we're going to work on creating a coffee cup. And I'm going to show you two other ways that we can create material and a different method of sketching. So in the document that we've created the house brick in, what we can do is just create another part studio by clicking on this plus button in the bottom left corner of our window and choosing Create Part Studio. You can right click on your part studios and rename them if you want. So for today, I might call this one Coffee Cup. Enter, and it will save it as that. All right, the same as we did last time, we need to choose a plane that we're going to draw on to produce our sketch and then create a 3D drawing from that. So for this project, I'm going to draw on the front plane. So I'll select the front plane, click N on my keyboard, and then sketch in the top left corner. And going to sketch slightly differently this time. Instead of using only basic rectangle and circle tools, we're going to use a combination of tools to create basically a profile of a coffee cup. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to grab a rectangle tool, and I'm going to start again from the origin point and drag my rectangle out. Now the width of my rectangle is going to be 35 millimeters and the height is going to be 4 millimeters. All right, so I've got that there. The next thing I'm going to do is draw, the side. So this will be the base of our coffee cup. So now I want to draw the side of our coffee cup. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to draw a line from this point up and out at an angle, because coffee cups are usually tapered. And instead of putting a dimension on this one, I'm just going to click the escape key. If you accidentally did put a dimension on it, so for example, if I was to draw a line from this point up and I accidentally clicked enter instead of escape, we're going to want to delete that dimension because it's going to change. The next thing I want to do is get my line tool again and draw a horizontal line, and this line is going to be 4 millimeters. So I'll drag 4 and then enter, and then I'm going to draw a line which is going to be parallel to the other angular one, and you can see that with my line, when I get to that point that's parallel, it starts to get that yellow dotted line in it again. So I'm just going to drag that all the way down to this rectangle that we started with. Now, at the moment, our part of our drawing is blue, which means it's not well defined, and so we're going to do that now. So the first thing we're going to do is use our dimension tool again. So remember, our dimension tool's at the top, or you can press D on your keyboard, and we're going to click this line here and the baseline of our original rectangle and drag a dimension line out to the side. Now our coffee cup is going to be 85 millimeters tall, so if we type in 85, it will increase the height of our coffee cup. Now the last thing I want to do is I want to tell the program what angle or what taper our coffee cup is going to be. And again, we do that with the dimension tool. So I've already got the dimension tool selected. I'm going to select this edge and then the bottom of the original rectangle that we drew. Drag that out, and you can see instead of dimensioning the length or width, now we're dimensioning the angle. And for this, I'm going to type in 100 degrees. All right, the last thing I'm going to do before we finish this sketch is I'm going to select the line tool one more time. I'm going to select the origin point and I'm going to draw a line straight up. And before I click to finish that line, I'm going to press Q. And what Q does is changes from drawing a solid line to a dashed construction line. So I'm going to click now to complete that line, and the height of it doesn't matter. Once I've completed it, press escape. And then I'm going to name this sketch coffee cup profile. So if I want to edit it later, it's more obvious what it is. And then click the tick. All right, so this sketch is going to form the profile of our coffee cup. And this time, instead of using the extrude tool, we're going to use the one next to it, which is called revolve. So we click the revolve tool, and it's going to ask us for the faces and regions we want to revolve. And what we're going to do is we're going to select these two regions here that we've created. The next thing we're going to do is click on this red box which says revolve axis, and then choose the construction line that we drew. The last thing is to make sure that your drop down box here is on full, which means it's going to do a full revolve, and then click the tick. And then remember to rotate our 3D object. You can hold the right click on your mouse and drag it around, and we've got basically the beginnings of a coffee cup here. So the next thing we're going to do is add a handle. All right, so the way that we add a handle is we first need to work out which plane we're going to draw on, and in this case it can be either this right plane here or the front plane, the two that intersect the center of the coffee cup. I'm going to select the plane, press N to normalize, and then over here under our view menu, I'm going to click the little drop down box next to the shaded cube, and I'm going to click at the very bottom section view. And what it will do is, because we selected the right plane, it will cut the cup in half so that we can see inside it, and that's going to be important to be able to draw our next sketch. If your coffee cup looks like this, you just click the tick. If it doesn't, select the plane to cut it in half and then click the tick. All right, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to draw another sketch. So I can click sketch, and it's going to be on the right plane. So select the right plane. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to draw an ellipse. And to draw an ellipse, you go to where the circle tool is, click the drop down arrow and select ellipse. Now, when you draw your ellipse, I want you to start by clicking in open space. Make sure that when you drag your cursor around, there's not a yellow dotted line or anything highlighted, because this will constrain your sketch and we won't be able to change it the way that we need to in a moment. So in open space, click, drag your ellipse out so that it's at a bit of an angle. See, when I have it upright, I get the yellow line. I don't want that because, again, it's going to constrain my sketch. So I need to drag it out at a bit of an angle, click once, and then click again to set the width. Now I want the height of my ellipse to be 75, and I want the width of my ellipse to be about 50. Again, you can change this later to suit the style that you want for your coffee cup. It's really up to you. The next thing I want to do is I want to draw a line from the bottom point. So if I mouse over my ellipse and drag the mouse down to the bottom, I get a square to say that's the widest point of the ellipse. I'm going to draw a line all the way across that ellipse. Okay, again, our sketch is blue, meaning that it's not well defined. And basically we want to move it over so that the ellipse intersects the edge of the coffee cup and starts to form the shape of a handle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the dimension tool from the middle point of the ellipse to the origin point and go down. And first we're going to set the width. So I'm going to try 45 millimeters and see what that looks like. I think that'll be okay. And then we want to set the height. So we're going to click the dot in the middle of the ellipse, click the origin point and drag it out in this direction. And I'm going to try maybe 40 mil, just see what that looks like. Okay, that to me looks pretty good. The last thing we need to do is we need to set the angle of this ellipse so that it matches the coffee cup. So I'm going to click the line that we used to intersect the middle of the ellipse. I'm going to click the bottom edge of the cup and then drag out to get my angle. And I was already pretty close to the correct angle, but remember the angle that we drew before was 100 degrees. So I'm going to type in 100. And this is basically going to form the shape of our coffee cup handle. So once you've got something that looks like that, you can name the sketch. And this is going to be the coffee handle. We'll call it the path, and click the tick. And then the next thing we need to do is draw another sketch, which will be the profile of our coffee handle, and it's going to follow this ellipse all the way around and form our handle. Now to do that, we need to create another plane. And the easiest way to create a plane is to find a plane that's already near what you need and then create another one that's parallel. So this one here, this front plane for me, is pretty close to what I need, but I need a plane that intersects with our ellipse shape. So what I'll do is I'll select the front plane, and then up the top there's a button called plane. Okay, I'm going to click that. In the drop down from the dialog, I'm going to select plane point, which basically means we want to create a plane parallel to a plane that we've selected and that passes through a point. And then I'm going to select this point in the top of our ellipse drawing, and that's going to create a new plane for us. Now you can rename that if you want. I'm just going to leave it named as plane 1, and then I'm going to click the tick. All right. The next thing we're going to need to do is select plane 1 and press N to normalize it. And we're going to draw the profile of our coffee cup handle. So I'm going to select sketch because we're doing a new sketch. And I can see here is the dot, which is the top of our ellipse drawing. What I want to do is create another ellipse. So I'm going to go ellipse. I'm going to start it on that dot point, and I'm going to drag it sideways horizontally. So you can see I've got the yellow line. This time I want to constrain my sketch. So I'm going to click once, and then I'm going to create the height of my ellipse. The width of my ellipse, I'm going to make 12 millimeters. And again, we can change that if we want to later on. And I'm going to make the height maybe 7, and that looks okay. Again, I'm going to rename the sketch, and we'll call this coffee handle profile. And then I'm going to click the tick to say that I've completed my sketch. All right, now I want to zoom out, and we have everything we need to create the coffee handle. So far we've learnt 2 ways to create 3D objects from 2D objects. The first one is to extrude, which is where we start from a 2D shape and then push it out. The second way we've learnt is revolve, where we start with a 2D shape and an axis, and we revolve the 2D shape around the axis. The next one we're going to learn about is a sweep. So if I click the sweep tool, it's going to ask me for 2 things. The first thing is the faces and sketches that we want to sweep, and for us that's going to be the little ellipse that we drew. The next thing it's going to ask us for is the sweep path. So if we click sweep path and then click the outside edge of the big ellipse we drew, you'll see that it's starting to make a coffee handle for us. Now, the other thing we want to make sure of is that because we're going to delete part of this handle, because we don't want the handle inside the coffee cup, is that we're not adding material, we're going to create a new solid. And what that does is now in our part studio, we've got 2 parts. We've got one part, which is the original liquid reservoir of the coffee cup, and a second part, which is the handle. Okay, and we click the tick to do that. If you'd already done the sweep and you've accidentally clicked add part or something that you weren't meant to, remember how I said this feature tree lets us go back and edit things? What you can do is double click on the sweep, go back, and if you accidentally selected add, just change it to new and then click the tick. All right, now that we're at this point, there's one more tool we need to use to get our coffee cup to basically its final shape before we can put a few finishing touches on it. And really all we want to do is get rid of the inside part of this handle. So What we're going to do is use a tool called the Boolean tool, which is this tool at the top here. So you click Boolean, and we're going to do a subtraction. So what I do is I click subtract, and subtract basically lets us subtract one part from another. So what we're going to do is we're going to subtract this reservoir part of the coffee cup from the handle. So when it asks for tools, we're going to select the main part of the coffee cup, and for targets, we're going to select the handle. Now, the other thing you need to make sure that you do is tick keep tools, otherwise it will delete the main part of the coffee cup. And then we're just going to click the tick. And you'll see now down in our parts, we've got 3 parts. We've got part 1. If I mouse over it, it highlights the main body of the coffee cup. Part 2, which is the outside part of the handle. And part 3, which is the inside part of the handle. Now, at this point, we don't need part 3 anymore, and we can basically delete it. So what I can do is on part 3, right click and click delete. It's going to ask me which parts I want to delete, and then I click the tick and it's gone. Now, to get our coffee cup back to the full mode, we need to click the drop down box over the right hand side and turn off section view, and basically our coffee cup is pretty well done. Okay, the last tool I want to show you before we finish this tutorial is the fillet tool. And the fillet tool basically just lets us round over edges and make them look a bit neater. And also for something like a coffee cup, you don't necessarily want sharp edges like this. You'd want them to be rounded so that it's more ergonomic for the person drinking out of it. So what we do is we go to our fillet tool in the ribbon at the top, select fillet. The first thing we want to do is just change the size of our fillet. In this case, I think 2 millimeters should work. So if I select 2 and then click these 2 edges, okay, it's given me one of these edges has gone red, which means basically the fillet that I've chosen is too large. We might try 1.9 millimeters and see if that works. And it seems to like that. So I'll click a tick. And you can see it's basically just rounded over the top of the cup. There's 2 other sharp edges that we'll put a fillet on, which is this outer one and the one inside the cup. So if I'm to select fillet, choose those 2 edges, and we'll make this one a bit larger. We'll go 10 millimeters, and hopefully that will work. That makes our handle look a little bit disjointed, so we might have to modify that. So I'll click tick. And because my handle looks a bit jointed, all I need to do is change the original sketch from the big ellipse that we drew. So to fix that, what we'll do is we'll just make the handle slightly smaller. And the way to do that, once you've already created something, is to go back to this original sketch that you use. And in this case, we need to change the one called coffee handle path. So I'll double click on that, press N to normalize the sketch. Now I need to change the height of this ellipse. So if I double click the 75 millimeter dimension and change that to 65, press enter. I'm also going to need to raise the handle up a little bit. So I'm going to change this dimension from 40 to 50. And maybe even less, maybe 45. And see how that looks. And that's fixed it. Now, because we've changed that, our part 3 changed, so it just means we need to go back in and delete part 3 again. So right click on it or press delete and click the tick to let us know that we want to delete it. And that's pretty much it for this tutorial. So just to recap, in the first tutorial we learned how to make 3D objects from extruding, where we start with a 2D sketch and then push or pull it into a 3D object. To create the coffee body, we used the revolve tool, where we drew a profile and created an axis and revolved the profile around the axis to create a 3D shape. And then for the handle, we drew a path and then a profile and used the sweep tool to make the profile go along the path and create that shape. And then to delete part of that, we used the Boolean tool. So quite a bit in drawing this coffee cup. Hopefully you were able to follow along with it. If you have any troubles, just post a question below the post in Google Classroom and I'll try to help you out. And that's it for this tutorial.